Everybody wants to find the perfect match for their financial needs. Secured savings, stress-free access to affordable loans, instant mobile money transfers to MTN and Orange Cameroon, and even a share in the profits as a member owner. For over 7 years, Rencam Credit Union has been the perfect match for Cameroonians living in the UK and other nationals with interest in the Cameroonian heritage. Visit rencam.co.uk. Join Rencam Credit Union today, achieving success together.
Jack was sing for them. Sing, sing, sing. I'm falling for you, mother. I'm missing you, mother. Loving you, mother. Baby, don't make sure take my heart cold. Don't make sure leave me lonely, I swear. You're the only one for me. And if you ain't got trouble, baby, I will fight for you. I will die for you. Yeah. Oh. Some confiance, some carison, some lasham, bad way. Don't let me bad way. Some confiance, some carison, some lasham, bad way. Don't let me bad way. I know you get the love again. I know you get to trust another man, but I got you, my baby. I know you get the love again. I know you get to trust another man, but I got you, my baby. Come to me, come to me. I got you, I got you. Come to me, come to me. Come to me, I got you. Come to me, come to me. Bakanaki, I didn't miss you like na penalty. Bakanaki, me I go miss you like na penalty. Muri ate kote, muri ate kote, ate kote. Some confiance, some carison, some lasham, bad way. Don't give me bad way. Don't play. Some confiance, some carison, some lasham, bad way. Don't give me bad way. I know you get your love again. I know you get to trust another man, but I got you, my baby. I know you get your love again. I know you get to trust another man, but I got you, my baby. Come to me, come to me. I got you, I got you. Come to me, come to me, come to me. Come to me, I got you. Come to me, come to me. Falling for you, water. Falling, missing you, water. Missing you, loving you, water. GORETTI.
Hi. Hello, Elmina Lovely. Hi, for real. Hi, Christelle is watching all the way from Cameroon. Hi, thank you so much for joining. Hi, Mami, and all those whose names are not visible to me. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the show. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Woman Experience with me, your host, GORETTI, and I'm joined today by someone who is here to teach us all about a different form of healing, or an alternative form of healing, which I'm really, really curious and excited about tonight. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That took me by surprise. Thank you very much, for real. I appreciate that. So if you're new to our show, welcome. You're very welcome. Feel at home. Consider yourself our guest. I'm the host, and I've got my main guest, and you watching through whichever medium you're watching, you're considered our guest. So welcome to the Woman Experience. Any questions you've got during the course of the conversations, leave it in the comments. We're a very interactive platform, and here we share our experiences, and we believe very much in sharing, learning through our shared experiences. So any questions you've got, any answers, if anyone else is asking a question that you've got an answer to, please leave it in the comments and just be here, be willing to help. That's what we do here every Friday. It's a weekly show and it streams on YouTube and on here, the Woman Experience Show. And I cannot, I'm really excited, but I cannot really go on without telling you people about two amazing sponsors. Skylar Glam. Skylar Glam has sponsors every lipstick I'm wearing today. I'm just wearing her gloss and she's on skylarglam.com. So please make sure you get purchase yourself some long-lasting, gorgeous lipsticks. And we've also got Elmina Price, who is also a small Cameroonian business who does Cameroonian food, fresh, and she posts all across the world. So if you are anywhere, if you're in the UK or if you are, just find Elmina on eBay and purchase. Let's support small Cameroonian businesses. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Elmina and Skylar, for sponsoring our show. We really appreciate you. So without further ado, I'm going to go into this. I'm really, like I said, excited to speak to our guest tonight. Her name is Jessica Sharp, because I have been very, very curious about what she's going to be talking to us about today. Different forms of healing. If you know me, you know I am very spiritual, not religious. I am very spiritual, and I'm always interested in things that have to do with energy and healing and all of that form of life. I'll call it a form of life in this instance. But yeah, there's something I want to say about Reiki. In the time I've been doing my research on Reiki, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, as you've seen on the posters. I came across their principles, and Jessica was kind enough to share it with me today. And their principles are: just for today, I will not anger. Just for today, I will not worry. I will do my work honestly. I will honor my elders, and I will be kind to every living thing. I mean, I'm going to read it a second time. Just for today, I will not anger. Just for today, I will not worry. I will do my work honestly. I will honor my elders, and I will be kind to every living thing. I found that so beautiful. And on that note, I'm going to bring the very beautiful Jessica Sharp to the stream, who is joining us all the way from the US. Hi, Jessica.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted and honored. Thank you so much.
I am too, and I really want to know more about Reiki.
Good. I can't wait to answer these questions. I'm so excited.
Yeah, the principles. I mean, isn't it beautiful?
It is. It's so beautiful. They've been translated multiple times in lots of different ways from the original Japanese. Reiki originated in Japan in about the early 1900s, and it's been translated and retranslated. A lot of the translations leave out the part about honoring the elders, but that is really so important to me. So I, when I talk about the principles, or when I list them out, I make sure to include that.
Yeah. And I'm sure to every African, it's so important, because our culture is all about honoring our ancestors and our elders.
Yes, absolutely. It was definitely, still is very important in Japan, where Reiki originated. And they're not the only ones. There are so many cultures that do that beautiful work of honoring the ancestors.
I know, no, of course. And anything that honors our ancestors, I give it a second listen, because I am all about that. But tell us exactly, and I know, yes, I've heard you say from Japan, but really, in a teaching moment, what exactly is Reiki?
Thank you. Yeah, so Reiki, as I said, it originated in Japan in the early 1900s, but that's just the latest iteration of what human beings have been doing since humans have existed on this planet, which is to put your hands where it hurts. So what's basically happening in a Reiki session, or even when we're a person's sending Reiki to themselves, which is possible, is that you are calling on the life force energy, which is called Ki in the Japanese, also spelled Qi in Chinese, or Qi in other cultures.
Yeah.
And you are calling on that energy and channeling it through your body with the understanding that it can help you, help your body release tension, stress, energetic blockages, and also connect you deeper to that loving life force. There's scientifically, if we look at it from an anatomy perspective, what's happening is that we have our autonomic nervous system, right? And there's the sympathetic part of that nervous system is responsible for coping and action and doing, and it's what kind of keeps us going. Then we have our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system responsible for rest, digestion, immune response, cell reproduction, actually regenerating cells that have broken down. They cannot operate at the same time. They can't operate simultaneously. So our kind of coping go system that's so in play in our modern society has to sort of relinquish dominance for a moment to allow the parasympathetic nervous system to kick in. So on a scientific level, that's what's happening in a Reiki session is with support and with soothing touch and connection, a practitioner can help someone's body engage that parasympathetic nervous system. So people might have heard, Reiki stimulates the body's natural healing abilities. That's what that means. It's stimulating your body's ability to rest and digest food more efficiently, regenerate cells that help organs to function. Things.
So how did you get into Reiki?
Oh gosh. Well, I have been doing this. I'm in my 7th year. So I'm 8 years into this because I did a year of training. Prior to having children, I didn't really have a career, so I knew that was something I wanted to look into, as my kids got older. And I knew I wanted to help people, but I'm squeamish about blood, so that ruled out nursing and veterinary here. I also am terrible at making people part with their money, so that ruled out sales and nonprofit. But I had heard of Reiki and never really thought that I would do it. But once, right after my youngest was born, I was very sick. I got a really bad case of mastitis and I couldn't get out of bed. And my 2-week-old baby is like crying in the other room. And his dad was trying to calm him down and nothing was working. And just in a moment of sheer desperation, I was like, what if I just telepathically send him like good mom energy? And I was like, he stopped crying. And I was like, okay, whatever. That was such a fluke.
Yeah.
So I stopped and he started crying again. And I was like, wait a second. So again, and he stopped crying. And we went back and forth like that for about 5 minutes. So basically I tortured my infant for 5 minutes. And then I was like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe, that could be something I can do. And I looked up different programs through which to learn Reiki. I wasn't so jazzed about them, honestly. Because Reiki is not regulated by the government the way that acupuncture and massage are. It follows that the training standards are also like unstandardized. So most of the classes being taught were like a weekend workshop where you would, maybe study for like 5 or 8 hours learning level 1 Reiki techniques. And that's great. But then with that certificate, because again, like there's no necessarily governing body telling you can't do this. You could take that 8-hour training and go open a business based on that. And there's subsequent levels. There's 2 more levels, level 2 and then what's considered master level. Each of them are typically about the same amount of time. So 8 times 3, that's 24. I just was like, I don't necessarily want to build a career out of something I only, went to class for that short amount of time. I knew myself. I mean, I knew that I was susceptible to thinking, wow, this is going to change my life, and then forget what I learned or not feel confident or have that imposter syndrome creep in. and undermine my ability to actually do anything with that training. So I wanted something more in depth. I wanted like an apprenticeship program or something. And it was so divine how this happened. The only apprenticeship program I could find was in New York City, which was about 3 hours from me.
Yeah.
And but then there just happened to be one that started 5 minutes from my house, and that's what I took, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. So well, wait. I'm still back on the fact that you were able to telepathically, or so you believe that? Do you believe that you actually calmed your baby down?
At the time, I was so desperate, and I wasn't sure. And honestly, I was such a brat in my early training because I did go in so skeptical. I kind of went in and I was like, I kind of believe that this is real. I remembered as a child being able to sense energy coming off of people. I remember being able to sense it in my hands. But I also had distinct memories of being laughed at and told I was crazy, and I shut it down. And so I knew on a certain level that there was truth in it, but I was carrying and still projecting that laughter and, oh, how could you're insane, kind of carrying that with me as well into my training. So I was a big brat, and I was like, I'm gonna believe this if you prove it to me. And it took a lot of undoing of that in my own brain. But after training for so long, and that's another reason I wanted to train for so long, is so I get the opportunity to feel it multiple times, to get comfortable, to realize, wow, I just felt something in my hand, and it wasn't the air conditioner kicking on. I just felt something in my hand, and it wasn't that someone, that their belly started rumbling or something like that. So, I definitely went in very skeptical, and over the years, my skepticism has proved to be very unwarranted because
Speaking of skepticism, because there are a lot of people who are watching this now and thinking, oops, no, this is not for me, or this sounds really, very far away from what I've been taught to believe. And we actually even have a question here from Christel, who is asking, what do you say about people who consider Reiki as voodooism, Jess? Yeah, you're going to come to that question. So bear that in mind, but I think that most of our audience is very open-minded. So, but what would you say to Crystal's question? Actually, what do you say about people who consider Reiki as voodooism, and for Christians who say it is non-Christian and Christians shouldn't, practice something like Reiki?
I see. Yeah, this is a question I get a lot, actually. And like the answer is very broad, so I apologize in advance if I'm all over the map with this answer. But when I'm asked, how could a Christian, person practice Reiki that's really inappropriate, I pull out my favorite scripture from the Bible, which is John 14:12, in which Jesus says, all the things, truly, truly, I say unto you that all the things that I have done, thou shalt do, and greater than these shalt thou do, because I go to my Father. And I used to cut the last part of that scripture off because I go to my Father. Oh, it doesn't even matter. But really, he is saying in those 5 or 6 words, please continue this. Please make sure that the people who are alive in my lifetime are not the last to experience this healing. And I'm not saying that it's miraculous. I'm not one to want to raise the dead or things like that. But we can still take his love and his mercy and share that through, even something like the laying of hands and that human connection. Reiki does tend to get kind of, I call it like thrown under the umbrella of occultism, because it's not a religious practice. It's a spiritual practice. The same way that yoga is a spiritual practice in which you're stretching. As you stretch, you are considering the energy of your body and meditating. Reiki is similar. It's spiritual. It's not a religion. Therefore, it's equally accessible to people of all religious backgrounds, including people who practice what some might call the more occult faiths like paganism or Wicca. since it's easily, they can call on the universal life force just as easily as someone who's Christian.
Yeah.
It tends to get blown. Yeah, it tends to get misunderstood.
Yeah, because ultimately we are all calling on the universal life force. Even when we're praying, what are we doing when we're praying? We're calling on that life force to come and manifest whatever it can manifest in the physical, and do that through our faith, right? So, and probably the people in the occult do the same thing, because we're all trying to tap into that. So, I don't know. I'm not I'm not one to see. I don't consider myself. I'm very open-minded. I'm very open-minded, and especially with something like Reiki that has such beautiful principles, like the principles I read in the opening, just for today, I will not anger, which I really wish I could leave those principles, but, but so the thing, what I'm trying to say is, with guiding principles like that, it feels very much like a religion to me.
It can feel like that. Although religion, when I think of religion, I think of like a group of people in some sort of that have organized themselves into some type of hierarchy. And with Reiki, from what I've seen, that's not necessarily the case. This is more of a spiritual practice, and that it can just be accessible for each person, and they can develop their own relationship with that universal force, with what some we call God or spirit or the divine. I've actually am no I don't want to say I left my church, but like I just, I was going to church, a Unitarian church, and I noticed that the time that I spent practicing Reiki, I had such more of a depth of spiritual connection, and I felt more connected with the world around me than I did when I was going to a church, and then there's a lot of like interpersonal drama, and there's a lot of politics, and why didn't you volunteer to make the cookies, and that to me didn't feel like spiritual. So I realized that, like, wow, like I'm actually getting my spiritual sustenance and my connection and my growth in my relationship with spirit on all the days other than Sunday. So yeah, I've just been really blessed to grow in that spiritual connection as a practitioner. It's a lovely blessing.
That's good, double fold. What exactly then happens during a Reiki session, Jessica? What do you do?
So every practitioner is different. I can speak to what I do. I work. I think that there's so much value in helping a client remember that they are divine and that they are loved uniquely by the universe. So I talk a lot, I'll be honest. We start a session, and this is whether I'm working in person or whether I'm working remotely. There's a form that people fill out that has like a lot of like medical history stuff. I want to know like what their physical symptoms are, because I believe all physical symptoms have an emotional and energetic connection. And since I'm working in the emotional and energetic parts of the body, I can uniquely affect those physical symptoms. We can encourage the parasympathetic nervous system to alleviate some of those symptoms by understanding what emotion and energy is behind them. So we talk about their history, talk about their upbringing, what's their self-esteem like, their self-confidence, because even those can affect our health. Then the person either lays on the table, or we just become very quiet and I connect with their energy. I do place my hands on a person. Some Reiki practitioners hover their hands above a person. I started out doing that, but then over the years, I've started placing my hands because I think there's such a value in non-sexual touch. We are very touch starved society, and we unfortunately have these big, beautiful prefrontal cortexes. We're social, emotional creatures, and we need that connection. So I think there's a lot of value in offering the touch to a person's body. And I use, I kind of follow the acupuncture meridian system as I choose where to place my hands. Then should I keep going with this? Because I can go real deep. Okay. So
I mean, paint us a picture so that you know.
So as I said, every practitioner is different. There is a Reiki technique called embodying, which is where we actually bring the energy of some other thing into our own bodies. It's not telepathy. I have no interest in reading people's thoughts, but when I'm using the technique of embodying in a session, I want to feel some of the emotional stuff that might be going on with another person, and I feel where the blockages are. I feel where they're holding a lot of excess energy and where there might be very little energy or undernourishment. So, and I also work closely with the chakra system. The chakra system is like a Hindu concept, and it translates to energy wheel. There's 7 in the body. I will start out by embodying the person's energy as a whole. Then I go through and I
embody, like you can actually feel. Oh, when you embody,
I can feel some things. I still am aware that I'm me. But I can, like, if let's say I'm embodying and I, connect with someone's energy and I bring it into myself and I start to feel immediate changes. Like all of a sudden I have this pressure in my ears. All of a sudden my eyes hurt. All of a sudden, I feel like I can't take a deep breath. That's telling me that what those sensations are something that the client is experiencing. And they might not be experiencing it on a conscious physical level. I'm feeling into their energy. And what's happening on an energetic level might not have manifested as a physical symptom yet, but if we don't work to soothe it or alleviate it. So I do that embodying process to get a baseline of how their energy is patterned in that moment. Then I go through and I embody each of their chakras one at a time. Again, I do this because it gives me such rich information about not just their body in that moment, but how did they get there? Let's say they have an autoimmune disorder. What happened? What emotional energy is being like trapped or blocked in what part of the body to manifest this autoimmune disorder? And a lot of times, we're very mental creatures. We're very analytical. People end up with, when I'm feeling they have a lot of energy around their head, it kind of feels like this big space helmet of static, and there's very little down below, like around the GI, area, reproductive area. So part of my work in a session is balancing that out.
I see.
Yeah, there's it's so I love embodying the chakras. It gives me a baseline. The rest of my sessions are spent without a formula. I don't say, now I'm going to put my hands here and I'm going to put my hands here. I'm asking the body. And like, what you were mentioning earlier, praying. And when we're praying, we're connecting with spirit. I'm doing that same thing, that same connection process, but with the client's energy body. So I'm saying to the client, okay, where would you like me to start? And I might feel my hands magnetically drawn to a certain part of the body, or I might feel in my own body, tension in the heart, tension in the throat. And I know that's where I should start.
I have a bit of experience with that because I went to a class where I did to understand the aura, and because I used to feel that it was specific people who can do things like that, right? I mean, anybody can practice Reiki, anybody. Because I think the thing that we forget is that, I don't know if it's because of religion, we forget that we are actually spiritual beings. We are energy. We forget that, and we anyway. So I was trying to understand what auras were. And so I did this course on aura, and I could feel, I did it on my husband, I did it on my children. I can feel like their energy field. And it's fascinating to me because when I do that, my children can say, when I'm coming close into their energy field, they tell me that, Mom, I can feel you. I'm not touching them. my hands could be like, because for some of my children it varies, but like they can feel me, my hand coming close, so
Yeah.
I can understand what you're saying, because I have. But the question before I go to the questions in the comments, what kind of illnesses can Reiki cure?
So I want to make a distinction between curing and healing.
Mhm.
Because curing is a very external
Okay,
thing.
let's say, so what kind of illnesses can Reiki heal, and is it permanent? Can it be permanent healing?
The permanency of any work that's done energetically really depends on the client and their ability to continue to be objective and pragmatic about their energy. So symptoms that can be helped, Reiki I consider to be supplemental healing work in conjunction with medications. If someone has cancer, I'm not going to say, don't get chemo, just get Reiki. That's terrible. I do Reiki while they're getting chemo, but I wouldn't say, oh, don't take medicine. For something like a headache, low level stuff, you stubbed your toe, you skinned your knee, you have a headache, Reiki might be able to completely clear that up. Instead of taking aspirin.
Yes. Yes,
But
lovely. Headache is among.
yeah, so headaches, yeah. Now, if it's something like migraines and something that's chronic, then there might be like some deeper work to be done. If a person is constantly holding energy in their head that's excessive, or they have a blocked throat chakra that's causing energy to dam up above their neck and not really flow like we would want our energy to flow throughout our body, that might take some time and some understanding. That's what I was saying. Like, it really depends on the client. I mean, that's why I talk so much. That's why I explain everything that I'm either going to do or have done to a client, to them, because I want them to understand that they are an equal partner in their healing. They're the most important partner in their healing. If I say, if someone comes to me and I put my hands on them and I'm able to sweep or reroute some energy away from their head and cure their headache, or alleviate their headache, and then I don't tell them, hey, your throat chakra is blocked and your headaches are gonna keep coming back until you deal with this. I can send them on their way and call it a day. That's it. And then their headaches would come back, right? So the reason that I explain so much of energetic anatomy and energy dynamics to my clients is because I want them to understand, when they start to have that headache, oh, how is my throat? Am I holding back on something that I really want to say? Am I trying to control everything around me because it makes me feel safe to micromanage? And like, give them things to think about, give them mantras, or just, like, hey, your energy felt like this because, you were micromanaging. Micromanaging equals headache. So if you start to get a headache, check yourself, see, am I micromanaging again? And then stop and see if the headache goes away. It's like a puzzle being put together, as opposed to just, come in, get on the table, here you go, okay, bye. We're putting together a lot of different things that are not taught. We're putting together like a puzzle of why they're, what's going on with their energetic body and how they themselves can affect it for healing.
So your healing has to do with you. And Collie says, Goretti, that's thermal energy you are feeling from your kids. It's physics. Yeah, and Collie, I do know that thermal energy obviously is the energy that's associated with the body, right? Associated to the body's temperature and heat and all of that. But I think that in this case, it is different. I mean, energy. So, or even if it's not different, there's a thin line. There's aura and there's your thermal energy. So they could be the same. I don't know yet. I'm going to probably have to do some more research on that. But you can actually, there are auras. You can feel people's auras, and you can feel some, and because they have, first of all, they have different colors. That's a different conversation for another day. They have different colors. They feel different so they feel different. You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure, Jessica. So yeah, I know what you mean. Kali, but in this case, this was aura, and it's different. I kind of know the difference. Jules is saying Reiki is mild witchery, calling and making use of specific energies. What are the disadvantages of practicing Reiki?
The disadvantages lie really, for me, within the ethics. Reiki is a spiritual energy. It is, the life force energy. Therefore, it's always directed at the highest good. And human beings, with our cute little free will, we can really try to manipulate it against the highest good if we're not careful. You mentioned, feeling the auras of your children before, and God, did I do that in the early days of my practice. I would try to use Reiki to put my kids to sleep. I would do it in like that desperate mom way of like, I'm gonna go to sleep. You need to go to sleep. And they would hate it. They would hate it, and they would squirm away. And I wouldn't tell them what I was doing, but they could tell what I was doing. They could sense that I was sending energy to manipulate their energetic body with an agenda. I had my own agenda. I was not healing for the highest good in that moment. I was healing for my ego. And that's not Reiki. That is not universal life force at that moment. That's my energy of myself, my ego that I'm pumping out to my kids. So, if we don't acknowledge the difference, and if we don't, with my mentorship students, we talk about unpacking our ego. We talk about unpacking our reasons for becoming a healer. Are you doing this because you want to feel powerful? Are you doing this because you want to feel validated? Are you doing it because you're just trying to make a buck? Like, these are people's souls we're working with. These are people's deep energetic bodies, their traumas, people's vulnerabilities. Like, we need to maintain clear ethics and ethical foundation. Make sure that we're not just going in with an agenda. Because again, that's not Reiki. That's not the energy of Reiki.
So B Moma is asking, what's the difference with Buddhism?
Reiki and Buddhism. So Buddhism, the gentleman who originally kind of developed the modality of Reiki, his name is Dr. Mikao Usui, and he was a Zen Buddhist monk living in Japan. So it does have a Buddhist leaning. It's not, I'll tell a funny story. So he was not in the market to create a healing modality. He was meditating and had been kind of, sought out spiritual practice his whole life. And he was trying to attain a certain sort of enlightenment that's actually close to death. And he had been told by a mentor, this was back in 1922. Oh, the only way that you can attain that sort of enlightenment is to, fast until you die, and you probably will die. So, but right before you die, you'll be so enlightened. So he was not, that's what he was going for. Like, he wasn't trying to discover this healing energy, but in the midst of his fasting, and he kind of started to sense more energy. He was a little bit more clear, and then he had this experience of just being filled with energy, and his hands tingling, and he didn't know what was happening. He thought maybe, he was like, oh, am I dying? Like, maybe this is what dying is. But then he, afterwards, he didn't feel weak anymore. He didn't feel like close to death. He felt energized and like he had vitality. So he, there's a, as the story goes, he began to run to tell other people, I feel this energy in my hands. And he fell because he, tripped in his excitement. And he just as we would, placed hands onto his knee and started to feel this warmth and this energy flow coming down his arm, out of his hand, and into his leg. And he could feel it from both places. And he realized that was what the feeling was. I mean, you could call it a vision, or you could call it that, but like, whatever he was feeling, it had to do with healing. And he felt very called in that moment to develop this and teach others and share it with the world. So it does have that Buddhist bend to it, and you even see it with the principles, like, just for today I will not worry, just for today I will not anger. That's my least favorite one, actually, because I think we're human beings and anger is normal. Like, I work with so many people who feel that they shouldn't ever be angry, but that's a normal human emotion. Side note. Like, we can control how we express it, but that's not to say that we shouldn't ever have it. Anyway, thanks for letting me go on a side quest there. But
it's part of the conversation.
yeah, but so that's kind of the connection to Buddhism, but it's a spiritual practice, not a specifically Buddhist practice.
But to me, when everything you're describing is the same thing. If you've ever been, as a Catholic, I was raised Catholic. If you've ever been to a healing service, or I'm sure even if you're Pentecostals, it's the same practice that priests and men of God do. They place their hands on you. Even when your parent is praying for you before you leave the house, it's the same practice. They place their hands on your head and all of that. So I don't know why. I think because I understand it, so I think I should try and detach myself and really see it through the eyes of somebody who doesn't. Why would this practice be so different? Because Jules again is saying here in the comments, it's in Pidgin, but he's just saying it's a Japanese tradition that has gone worldwide, and it has nothing to do with divine energy. And I don't know why, Jules, and I think I'm speaking to you, Jules. I don't know why you necessarily think that way, because Jessica, I think Jessica has explained that it is for the highest good. If you're not doing it for the highest good, and then you're not practicing Reiki. It's in the same way when you go to the priest, he lays his hands on you. So how is a priest or a man of God or your father laying their hands on you and calling on God, on the highest energy, this invisible energy, God, whatever name we choose to call it? How is it different from a similar practice like this that's there to heal our form? And for those who are watching this and are truly Christian, I would like you to explain that a bit more to me, if that's so different. Clementine says, Jessica says, Emma says, Jessica, you're incredible. More people deserve to learn about your gift and skill.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you don't mind this.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it.
So Clementine says, my sister in Cameroon recorded a video of her singing and sent to me, which is what we always do. While listening to her this time, I burst out in tears and started crying. I felt sadness, fear, and depression. When I asked her about it, she opened up and told me that's what she's been going through all this while. Okay. Once I FaceTimed her, I felt like I couldn't breathe and I was gasping for air. She went to the hospital that morning with the same symptoms. Wow.
Yeah.
So you see, and this is a Cameroonian and this is an African girl feeling this. It's just not been put into words. I mean, Jessica, what do you have to say to that?
So yes, we are not just connected to people through our relationships, right? We are connected to people energetically as well. Think of the mother and child attached by the umbilical cord. Yeah. We have those, and you and I are energetically connected at this point. Yeah. Because we're interacting with each other, and a relationship like a sibling relationship, yes, absolutely. There's so much energetic exchange happening, and you can think of it like actual cords, right? Like if there's going to be like a plug into one person and a plug into another, and there's energy traveling back and forth between them, just like there would be in any electrical cord in your house. I'm not surprised that Clementine was feeling that from her sister, because they are so connected, and she's so closely, in tune with her sister, that even if her sister doesn't come out and say, I'm sad, I'm scared,
we can tell.
Clementine can energetically, she's very tuned like a radio to pick up those frequencies from her sister. So, yeah, it's beautiful. And excited that they share that deep connection, because there's so much like love there. There's so much healing that can come from those deep connections. But I'm also not surprised that that was a phenomenon they experienced. Now, as for the question of Reiki, and how is it different than the priest laying hands on it? I'm really failing to come up with a specific difference, because I think it is very, very similar.
Mhm.
The differences are more in the semantics, right? It's called Reiki. It's a Japanese name.
Yeah.
It's something that I do that is a career. I'm not ordained in any kind of religion that would say I'm the priest that can put my hands on you. Instead, I'm doing it as a practitioner, and similar to how a massage therapist or an acupuncturist would practice. So people come to me. There is a transactional exchange that I do this, most of the time for money, and
Yeah.
I'm teaching too. I'm teaching others how to do this, but I'm smiling at the question, because I've gotten the opposite question as well. I've gotten asked, well, how could a person who isn't Christian practice this? Shouldn't this be allowed only for Christians? Only Christians should be able to practice Reiki, because in some people's view, all healing comes through Jesus Christ. So if you haven't accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, how in the world could this be something that you could do?
Yeah.
And to those people, I say, laying of hands, putting your hand where it hurts. Like when, I mentioned the gentleman who ran down the mountain, and when he tripped, he put his hands on his knee.
Mhm.
We do that instinctively, and we were doing it before Christ's arrival on earth. So there had to be something to it before he came. And he said, like, as I mentioned before, truly, truly, I say unto you that all these things I have done, thou shalt do, and greater.
Mhm.
And so it makes sense that we would be able to do this.
Mhm.
But I think it's really the holiness of our existence that allows us to connect with the divine energy, not our belief system.
Yeah.
One person's not, the divine loves all equally,
Yeah.
and therefore every person can access that connection with spirit and use it for their healing, for their highest good. And I want to just make a distinction that I'm not just talking about physical. I'm talking about emotional stuff, unpacking traumas, unpacking our shadow, the ways that we work, live in the world, and interact with the world that we're not proud of, that we know we could do better. That's something that I've used Reiki to kind of help myself get the courage to look at those things, um, to examine myself, to self-excavate.
Mhm.
And I think that that's something that, it does make the world a better place when I'm interacting with the world, not as an alcoholic, or not as like somebody who had people pleasing tendencies and low boundaries, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we need all people to be,
Yeah.
excavating their stuff, not just Christians. So that's another way that I understand it.
So B says every relationship involves energy. Relationships without this energetic exchange or connection will break. I totally agree with you, B.
I do. Yes, I agree as well. Although it's very interesting, as I was mentioning before, energy cords, that's a real phenomenon, and it's possible to have more than one cord to one person that we're in relationship with. And some of those cords could be really diminishing and gross, and some could be very healthy and nourishing. And even after a relationship ends, like let's say your ex, like, from a long time ago, you could still be energetically linked to that person in some way, shape, or form through your energetic body. And to cut, like, some of the work that I do in my sessions is finding those, just the diminishing ones, just the cords that are not healthy, finding them, and cutting those cords away from the person's energy, so it's not being drained or siphoned anymore. And what's very interesting is that, like, let's say someone is trying to get away from an abusive relationship of sorts, or they have someone in their life or in their family that's a narcissist and that really thrives on manipulating them and kind of getting their power from making them feel bad. What there have been times, so many times during a session, I'll start cutting some diminishing chords from my client and their phone starts blowing up and it's so-and-so narcissist or, manipulative person, because they don't know what's happening, but they can sense innately, oh, I'm not getting my nourishment, I'm not getting my food, I'm not getting my, like the power that I'm usually getting. And so yeah, they start trying to call like right in the middle of the session. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So somebody asked the question, I don't know, I'm giggling, that can you use Reiki to boost somebody's sexual libido?
So I love this question. The answer is yes, but
as
with anything sexual, you need consent. So this is actually literally part of my ethics training that I teach my students. Is you can't just go to a bar or a party and say, that guy's hot, and start sending Reiki to his sacral chakra, right? Because that's unethical. It's, again, that has an agenda. That's not Reiki. Now, if you are with your significant other and you want to boost your experience and you're both okay with that, there's enthusiastic yeses behind it, then by all means go to town. I'm not going to say don't do that, it's unethical, but but as far as like, trying to make someone think you're attractive, that's not Reiki. Same thing with if you're in an argument with somebody. I can't tell you how many times people have been like, well, if I was fighting with so and so and then I was using Reiki on them to get them to see my point, and I'm like, we're not in the business of planting thoughts in other people's mind. It's not Inception. Like, that's not Reiki. Like, that's unethical. You shouldn't be doing that. You don't poke around in people's.
I'm really curious. You keep saying that I can use Reiki on them. And can you use Reiki from a distance? Like, can I send my energy to you across the pond?
Absolutely, yes.
You said, right? Yeah.
And thank you for calling out the word usage, because I am saying using Reiki, and when I say like, I'm going to use Reiki, it kind of is like in that way of like, I'm going to force somebody to do something. Like, that's really not great. I do struggle to figure out the correct wording. Even doing this for 7 years, I'm like, when I'm with a client, am I sharing energy with them? I don't feel like I'm doing anything to them, but am I sharing it with them? Am I working with them? So I say like I'm working with somebody's energy. I think that's kind of where I've landed for now. But yes, absolutely. Distance energy work is possible. And this is a really hard one for people to wrap their minds around.
Because let me just interrupt, because it sounds like witchcraft to the other mind, because that's how they use you. Yes. So explain it in a way that that we can see the difference. I think that'll be more reassuring.
So again, sending energy to somebody with I'm gonna make them see that I'm right. I would put that in the bucket of stuff that's kind of close to witchcraft, right? You're manipulating somebody's energy. I put that in the same thing as like love spells. Like, if someone loves you, they're gonna love you. Like, you don't need to like cast a spell. I'm not into all that. The way that distance energy healing works is, again, with consent. I wouldn't just start healing somebody willy-nilly without asking them if that's okay, because I'm connecting with their energy, and that would be so inappropriate to just be like, oh, let me connect with so-and-so's energy and start sending them healing without them knowing. Maybe they don't want it. So but remote energy healing, absolutely possible, because we're working kind of on the quantum level. Okay. The way I explain it to when I'm teaching kids is like, okay, energy doesn't have to follow the same rules and parameters that physical matter has to follow. In Newtonian understanding, two things can't occupy the same space at one time. When we're talking about the quantum field, that actually goes out the window. Things can be a particle or a wave, I'm working kind of on that realm of the energy within the quantum field. So I can connect with someone's energy if I put myself into a meditative state and just really, call in energy that's for everyone's highest good. I can connect with someone's energy no matter where they are in the world. I started out doing this early in my practice for people who are deployed military. So I was in the United States and they might be in like Japan or Korea or Germany. So I would actually be working on them while they were sleeping because our time zones were completely different. And I found that I liked that because I didn't have to be on the phone with them. I didn't have to get performance anxiety about like, what should I say, or anything like that. But they would tell me later on that the nights that I connected with their energy and sent healing energy to them were the best nights of sleep that they had. So I knew that there was something to it at that point. And now that we're in a pandemic, unfortunately, 100% of my work is remote. I miss being able to be in person and place those loving hands on my clients, but I'm so grateful, so very grateful every day that I work in a modality in a field that this is an option for me. I can't remotely. I can keep talking about this if you want, but
don't worry. I'm a lot. I'm listening intently. Bill says, I want to believe it's about inviting someone's energy using behaviors and actions.
That's yes. So you mentioned behaviors and actions. When I'm connecting with someone's energy, let's say I'm doing a remote session, and they might be in another state than me. There's a process. I bow in first, and there's a mantra that I say, which is, the divine in me honors and acknowledges the divine in you. And then I do a symbol in Reiki. As you go through your trainings, in the more advanced levels of training, there are symbols that we use that set intentions. Reiki is very intentional, and it's very focused on like gratitude and honor. So I'm setting the intention as I'm drawing the symbols on my hands. I'm going to connect with my client's energy now. And then that allows me, that kind of helps me go into that nice meditative state where then I can connect with it. Now I'm going back to her lovely question about behaviors and actions, there's a part of my brain that's like logic brain that's always on. So logic brain needs to feel like something, like this can't be real, like I kind of have to always fight that in myself. So the way that I feel so silly admitting this, but like the way that I connect with someone's energy is very pantomiming. Like I'll be like, okay, I'm writing the symbols on my hand. Now I'm going to draw the symbol in the air, and I'm going to literally act like I'm opening a door, and I'm going to literally reach through the door, and I'm going to take their energy and bring it through the door. And then I'm going to, again, close the door because my brain has to feel like it's real, right?
Yeah.
There has to be something based in the physical world in order for my brain to feel at peace.
That's faith. That's faith. So you're describing that, and I'm interpreting it as faith. So that's convincing yourself to believe in that thing is real.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not to say that I don't have faith that it's real. I think it's just the way that over the years, my system and my mental, faculties felt okay allowing faith to occur.
It works for you, in other words.
That's what works for me. Yeah. And I tell my students, you don't have to be me. You're allowed to do whatever works for you.
That's cool. I like that. Jenny says, Reiki for me is an eye-opener. I'm a Christian and a believer, and I do understand Reiki. So thanks, Jessica.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited.
So B again is asking, is it different from being hypnotized?
I'm struggling to answer that only because I don't know enough about hypnosis to be able to compare them. with remote work, I do speak during the session, mostly because either, like, somebody's on the phone with me and they can't necessarily feel what I'm doing, so I'm telling them,
Yeah.
or, I'm recording it and sending it to them later, and I record in real time. But, I'm not otherwise, I'm not talking, so I don't think that to me, I'm not it must be different. But
Mm.
again, I don't have enough reference points to be able to name it one way or the other.
So is Reiki then, would you say it's safe to practice on children?
Yes, absolutely. Again, as long as you and this is hard because of, with kids, we want them to do what we want them to do, and, like, so it can be a little tricky,
Yeah, but they want to do what they want to do.
exactly, yeah. So, like, you have to really make sure that you're coming at it without an agenda, which is tough for a parent,
Yeah.
but, it's, it's definitely helpful. I mean, like, now we've gotten to the point where my kids will ask me before bed if they're struggling to go to sleep, will you do some Reiki on me? Because it's like a loving touch, it's a loving connection. We're kind of taking all of the stresses of the day and all of the nagging about your grades and all of that, and we're kind of shoving that to the side for a little bit and just having a moment of, like, pure loving, unconditional loving connection, and kids need that. So yes,
Yeah.
Reiki is absolutely safe for children, and I actually teach kids as young as 5 years old how to do this for themselves.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would love to learn to do that for myself, to calm myself down.
Yes, yes. I teach self-care classes because it's so valuable. I mean, like, just to understand, like, how powerful you are and how much,
Mm.
how much, you can affect your own energetic body both through ignorance. I mean, we're affecting our energetic body by not knowing what we're doing so
Mhm.
much, and we can affect it for health when we do understand the connection between, like, our thoughts and emotions and how we're expressing ourselves. Are we repressing? Are we projecting our rage onto people? All of these things affect our health. So understanding those things is such a key to being
Yeah.
able to sort of, like, relieve that stress and that pain.
Yeah. So since you say there's no exact standards of practice for Reiki, right? Of course.
Mhm.
How then can one find an ethical Reiki practitioner?
So I tell people that I mean, there's a lot of different practitioners out there, and it's not rude to ask a lot of questions when
Yeah.
you are thinking of hiring a practitioner. So one thing to do is to kind of ask, some practitioners will have this on their website. Some you might have to call and ask them, but, like, ask them how they trained and where they trained and for how long. Now, that's not to say that longer training automatically means that they're a better practitioner, right?
Mhm.
But there's a chance because ethics training, like, I've been talking about ethics, like, this whole time, right?
Yeah.
And that tends to be one of the subjects that's on the chopping block when people are going through these very quick courses.
Mhm.
Um, so if a person has taken multiple trainings or if they've trained, for, with one practitioner for a long time, chances are that they will have gotten that ethics training and understand how important it is to, like, bring neutrality into the session and not necessarily, like, their sense of wanting to be seen as a magician or something like that. Um, the other thing is asking them how often do they receive their own energy work, because throughout my experience, I used to think, "Oh, as long as I have time to relax, like, I have my work and I'm gonna be holding all of this psychic space. I'm gonna be holding people's traumas. I'm gonna be connecting with them for all this stuff. And then as long as I have time to read a book and drink a cup of tea, I'll be okay." And that wasn't enough. So healers, because we are doing so much energy work for other people, we need to get that same work done for ourselves to balance it out, to nourish and replenish our own bodies. So it's not rude to ask a practitioner, what is their self-care routine? How often do they get their own energy work? Because if they don't, there's a possibility that they're going to burn out. And as people burn out, they probably are more apt to just not do a good job or um, devolve into some of those ethical problems again. And then the last one is I'm having trouble remembering. I know that there's three. Um, so it was ethics training, it was training standards, and then, oh, listen to how they listen to you. if you call someone and you ask them, how do you work? And then maybe like I'll explain to people like, this is how I work and it's really involved, but then, other than that, I want them to lead the conversation. Active listening is such a huge part of what I do. So
Yeah.
and so if you're on the phone with a practitioner and they're cutting you off, or if um, you don't feel that they're actually listening to you in a way that they could, take time to listen when you actually start to say things that make you feel vulnerable, that's a pretty good indication that maybe they don't, that would not be a good fit of a practitioner. But yeah, that's a way that you can kind of see. And again, I don't want to say that like, oh, because I did a year-long apprenticeship program, therefore I'm better. I'm not saying that at all. There's people that I know that did not do that, and they're fantastic healers. So it's really just a question of like seeing how your relationship with the practitioner develops, and are they a good listener?
Jessica, are all Reiki practitioners as soft-spoken as you are?
As soft spoken? Oh, I don't know. I feel like I actually feel like I'm loud.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, right? She's very soft-spoken. I mean, I would want to be healed by somebody like that.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
very
Well,
calming the way you talk. But
thank you so much. I will say that I don't know if all practitioners talk as much as I do. Because again, I'm like, I even if it's not during the actual healing, I spend extra time, and my sessions are long. My sessions are like 2 hours long, because I will put my hands on you for an hour, and then we're gonna spend another hour talking about what I felt when I did that, because I want people to understand. So, like, and I don't think that is necessarily common. I can't say, because I haven't been to a whole host of Reiki practitioners. I mean, the few people I've worked with have not been that way, but I do think it's a little outside of the mainstream.
Mhm.
But I appreciate that comment so much, because I definitely feel like, man, I talk so much.
Well, but even if you talk much, you talk right.
Well,
So
thank you. Yeah, I feel so honored and blessed to be able to. I mean, I feel like I wake up every day feeling like I won the lottery a little bit, because I'm like, wow, I get to do this and I get paid for it. Like, what? It's so much fun.
I know it's great to do what you love. I imagine getting paid. For me, I would imagine getting paid for acting. It would just be I would be living the dream. That's my dream.
Mhm.
Um, Alison says, thank you so much for your explanation, Jessica. I'm learning so much and enjoying feeling into our innate natural connection to life force energy to channel healing.
Thank you.
And
People.
Pascal says Reiki is just one of the forms, and so it has to do with psychology at the end of the day. Once your psychology says yes, you are in, and guess what? You are healed.
Yes, yes. And I thank you so much for that. I love that. There is so much of it that has to do with belief. And earlier you had asked like how, something like how can Reiki heal somebody, and how long does it last? And
Yeah.
it really comes back to each person's belief. Do you believe that your body innately knows how to heal? Do you believe that at a certain level your body knows everything it's supposed to do, that
Yeah.
it has a blueprint of perfect health that has been imprinted over time through society and generational trauma and conditioning and internalized messages and all of these other things that can, impact our body's natural blueprint of perfect health.
Mhm.
And do you believe that you could, with time and effort and objectivity, like your viewer mentioned psychology. Yes, there's so much, of being objective about your own thoughts that comes into play with it. Can you be objective enough and believe that you're
How
worthy
is
of this?
that? Mhm.
And
Sorry, just a
and
bit.
it's okay. Um, that's what makes the healing last. That's what makes it, more beneficial, more effective. Anybody can put their hands on someone
Hey,
and
that's what I said earlier,
yeah,
faith.
thank you, yes. Anyone can put their hands on somebody, and that person who's being touched will feel something. But if you don't understand what you're feeling, and you don't understand that it's probably your own body being like, "Whoa, hey," um,
Mindset.
then it wouldn't you're gonna leave not knowing and the symptoms are gonna return a little bit faster than maybe they would otherwise. But yes, it's faith, it's mindset, and it's believing that we are so powerful. And I wanna call back to, quantum theory a little bit and talk about just, like, how, our thoughts and emotions, we're more powerful than we give ourselves credit for because we are, we having these thoughts and emotions that are immaterial, right? You can't touch a thought, you can't touch a feeling, but
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, but they're so powerful that
Powerful.
they have these physical reactions in our bodies. They
Yeah.
are manifesting physical material through neuropeptides that are being released into our bloodstream, or electric energy that's causing a limb to move without our consciousness involved. So, you know, in that way, our thoughts and emotions are so much more powerful than we've ever been taught, so much more powerful than we've ever given ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
And they can be an equal partner in our healing process.
You see, I like that. I resonate with that so well. Thank you for that. From
You're
me
so
personally. From me personally. Oh, this has been really good. My gosh, we said an hour and we're an hour and 11 minutes into it. So,
I don't know, I mean, I could nerd out about this for hours, so
because it's you're passionate about it and you actually, really do believe that you're helping people, to be that selfless. I mean, it's like being a nurse. I know that doctors, yes, they diagnose and they prescribe, but I look at nurses as like angels to me,
Mhm.
because to want to be so selfless, to be there for a person, to help them, heal or nurse them back to
Yeah,
life
there's,
and
like, a
health.
ministry involved in that,
You
yeah.
know, and you don't have to. I mean, even if you're getting paid, it's just a bonus. But especially for nurses who do that out of love, I see them like Earth's angels to me. So, and that's something that you're doing. You're choosing to heal people.
Mhm.
Actively, physically heal people.
Yeah.
Honestly, I commend people like you because I can be very selfish. I'm thinking I gotta sleep, man. But
Oh, thank you.
just
Yes,
honestly from me, yeah.
oh, thank you, and you're right, there is a lot of giving involved, and, um, the benefit is definitely, like, being able to have those moments of education with people, and them say, "Oh, I feel better," but then also to, like, tell them, like, you're so beautiful." I mean, especially when I'm working with, like, people who might have had, like, abuse in their past or complex
Yeah,
trauma of some kind, and that they've never experienced what it's like to actually be loved or given love or reassured in a way that, like, reminds them of their perfection and divinity, and to be able to have those conversations with somebody and be like, "You are so beautiful, like, you're so amazing, you're so," and it might not land with them 100% because they're so used to looking down on themselves, or they're so used to feeling less than or not good enough. But
yeah,
to really say to somebody, "You are enough, like, you're more than enough, you're divine, like, you
yeah.
have so much divinity," is it's a really beautiful thing.
And especially when it's transformative, I'm sure you are just like, my job here is done.
Oh my god, those are the best, like, when someone says, "Oh, I've had this pain for 20 years and now I don't," or I mean, that and it I wanna make sure that I name that, like, I worked with someone for 4 years before we hit that mark, but, like, that is amazing. Working with someone and then the next time I see them, a woman says, "I had enough confidence after our work together that I wore my hair naturally." I mean, something that foundational,
Mm,
and but having that confidence and giving people that, uncovering that blueprint of health to the point that we're uncovering their love for themselves, like, that's
that
amazing.
that
So,
would be. So if I wanted to practice or learn how to practice Reiki, what would I need to do? Is there anything special I need to do?
I don't think there's anything special that you need to do. That's not like you have to convert to a certain religion or become vegetarian or anything like that. And I worried about that at first too. But just finding a teacher that you
Yeah.
trust. And it doesn't have to be in person. I mean, I used to only teach in person. Now because of the pandemic, I'm realizing that I can do it online as well. But like, finding a teacher either online or near you.
Asking those three critical questions, the three questions that you
Yeah,
spoke.
asking those three questions are really helpful. Making sure that when you interact with them, that they're a good listener, that they acknowledge your divinity and honor you as a person, not just, oh, I'm a teacher and I'm going to do this. Then it's kind of the way that I structure my classes is kind of like, what do you want to do with the skills that you learn going forward? So I mentioned that I teach a self-care class, and that's for people who just want to learn this for themselves, like to help themselves. They're do that beautiful like channeling of energy for their spouse and their friends and their children and even pets. I mean, you can help animals. You could help your house plants. It's just channeling this beautiful energy. If you have the right intention, if your intention is to like, I'm sending you this beautiful energy, then you could help a plant.
See that I don't know if my siblings are watching or my mom is watching. I used to see my father talk to the plants. I only know two people in this life who talk to plants. My father and one of my late former neighbors. She passed away. Lovely, lovely woman. Auntie Anne. She used to speak to her plants. My father used to speak to plants. I used to look at them like, are these people?
Yeah.
But I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a living thing.
Yeah.
And so that's, you could take a level 1, you could take like a Reiki level 1 class to learn those things for yourself. The reason that I call that type of class that I teach Reiki for self-care is because I want to avoid people. I want to teach the right people, and I want to avoid teaching people who just want to get the piece of paper so then they can run off and open their own business without taking the time to like really invest in learning. So that's, Reiki for self-care would be something for people who just want to learn for themselves. And then I also teach like classes for kids because I think it's valuable to teach kids about their energetic body rather than wait for them to get to adulthood and be like, wait, what is this? What? Like, and then I teach a mentorship program for people who want to actually be practitioners. And that's a 10-month program where we're doing lots of ethics training, learning different techniques that I've picked up over the years for like how to specifically treat cancer, how to specifically treat autoimmune disorders, people who have trauma, the elderly, how to treat children, for money, like, best practices with how to be a mandated reporter, like all of those things. But I also do private instruction for folks who don't want to take a year-long class just to be a Reiki practitioner, but they're already in a healing field, like maybe nurses, massage therapists that want to add Reiki techniques to their offerings, but don't want to open a Reiki business that's just a Reiki business. Like I do private instruction for those folks.
Okay. So I'm going to need you to repeat that because B is asking again. Please, let's get a list of illnesses that is used for as approved therapy.
Okay. So I'll just kind of go down a list of like clients I can think of off the top of my head. As far as I know, there's not a set standardized list of here's all the things that Reiki, is allowed to be used for. But I'm just gonna start saying things. Addiction, migraines, autoimmune disorders, cancer, but just not curing cancer, just kind of helping people as they're, processing and going through cancer. Bronchitis, the common cold and flu, helping the body's immune system process those illnesses faster. I mean, IBS, Crohn's disease, gastritis, a lot of GI stuff happens when we're tamping down on our emotions. when we're like repressing our emotions, that can really affect all those areas of the body. I do a lot of work with reproductive health. So for women, that might mean something like, endometriosis and PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, uterine fibroids. I work with a lot. For men, it's things like porn addiction, erectile dysfunction, um, something like where their reproductive system's being affected. UTIs, I work with people with chronic UTIs. Yeah, heart stuff, lung stuff. Like it's like really runs the gamut.
Yeah.
Thyroid issues, that's another one I work on a lot, is the thyroid. And that would be a whole other maybe show.
Chakras and stuff, we will need.
Yes, yeah. So like, thyroid is one of the things I end up working with people, either people in various stages of having their thyroid removed, or people who have had like hypothyroidism. There, so much of our, the processes in our body are affected.
You should work with my sister. She has some thyroid issues.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But for real, says Jessica is a very good and patient teacher.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
my pee. For real. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jessica. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yes, this was so much fun. And let me know if there's any other questions. People can always get me by email if they still
and like her website is on the banner that's running across the screen, gentlehandsreiki.com. If you want to know more, please get in touch. And Jessica is on Facebook again as Gentle Hands Reiki. So get in touch with Jessica on Facebook and via her website. I'm sure. I mean, I've personally learned a lot. I've just I've just had to do a bit more research on it in the time that since we last talked. But thank you. You've explained a lot. I wish I was in Maryland, but we'll talk about remote, learning.
Yes.
Something.
Yes. And if anyone's in another country and would like to take a class, I have an interest form on my website for like figuring out what time zones, like amenable time together a class for people in other countries.
Yeah. So if you're in the UK and you want to try this, B, where are you? Let's go and do Bolo in Cameroon. But thank you, Jessica. And any final words to your guests who've been watching? And just really thank you guys for staying.
Yes, I would piggyback on that and just say, I really appreciate like the depth of questions and people wanting to understand more as opposed and staying and listening as opposed to just being like, that's crap and evil and I'm out of here. I appreciate you staying and sticking around. And I'm just so grateful for you, GORETTI, and for our mutual friends who connected us to be on the show. You are such a treasure. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Auntie Ellie. She says,
thank you. Wow.
Thank you very much for your support. Well done, GORETTI and Jess. That's from Auntie Baby. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Well, Jessica, I'm going to keep you backstage. Don't leave yet. I'm just going to keep you backstage while I say goodbye to our guests.
Wonderful. Thank you again, everyone.
Bye. Oh, thanks, guys. I think this has been a learning session for so many of us, and I'm not going to say much about it because I think I'm going to take up one of Jessica's classes just to understand a bit more. So next time I'm talking about Reiki, I'm talking from a position of knowledge, experience, and everything else. Yeah. So, but thank you guys so much for listening. And if you're new to our show, like I said in the beginning, just before you leave, please don't leave without liking our page. It's the GORETTI Experience on Facebook, or subscribing to our YouTube page. It's the GORETTI Experience on YouTube. And we do this every Friday at 8 p.m. GMT. So from wherever part of the world you're watching us, please make sure you join us. And I hope you've learned something new. And if you haven't already, I have a movie on the YouTube channel and a feature film and so So make sure you take your time, explore that. This is episode 55, I think. So yeah, we have a lot more interesting things there for you to watch. So spend some time on my page, both on YouTube and Facebook, and get to know what the woman experience is about. But I thank you guys for listening. And Christmas is almost here. I hope you're preparing. Next week we're going to be talking about some of the amazing things you can purchase for for your gift hampers, or as gifts for your loved ones. So I'll see you next week, 8 p.m. here on Facebook and on YouTube. So from me to you, bye-bye. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.